Hey, how's it going? I'd like to talk to you about your sixth in-class exercise, which is going to be the stopwatch. The stopwatch is just going to be a simulation of a stopwatch, right? Just like the ones that you use in labs, the ones you use on the track, the ones that are on your iPhones. So this isn't going to be something you're unfamiliar with. You've seen these before. You know all of the functions already. I'm going to go through all the functions, but you know what this is supposed to look like, I'm pretty sure. What this is going to do for you as far as programming is concerned is, first, it's going to be the first time that you build a class from the inside out. So far, you've been able to use class methods for these buttons and for these lights and so forth to activate, deactivate, check if something's been pressed, and so forth and so on. But this time, you're actually going to go into the meat of a class, and you're going to change it around so that it does what you want it to do, so that an object of that class does what you want it to do. That object is going to be the stopwatch, and the class is going to be the class of all stopwatches, in case you wanted to have 2 or 3 different stopwatches going at the same time, which is completely feasible. So that's one thing you're doing. The other thing is you're going to get used to using the internal clock, right? When we're doing our mechanical simulations, we're going to have to worry about time increments. And that's what we're going to do in the stopwatch. Our game loop, which is where we're going to build all this stuff, already keeps track of how much time it takes to run through that loop. Usually it's going to take a certain amount of time. It's going to run at a little bit less than the frame rate, or a little faster than the frame rate. But, in order to make sure that everything looks smooth, our simulations are going to use the actual time it takes for the simulation to run through that game loop every time it makes an update. That way, the physics is really, really real. All right. We're going to use that particular increment, which is already measured, in the stopwatch. So what you're doing in the stopwatch is something you're going to have to do when we start bouncing balls and throwing things around the screen and so forth and so on. So, this is just a way to get you used to using that. That's more or less what's going on here. That first part is going to be fairly simple because you're just adding something and keeping track of an object property. That'll be the first thing you do. After that, you're going to start moving things around, making things turn on, off, and so forth and so on, just like you did before, only you're going to get into the meat of the timer and actually program in how it's going to react when you press different buttons. So let's actually just look at what this is going to do. So, when it runs, you're going to get this state because it's the template. The template's not going to do anything. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to make this object property, and then you're going to just print it out. So it's going to appear in the output window down here. It's not ready to get up on the screen yet. First thing we want to do is actually get the timer working. We can worry about the graphics after we get the timer working, right? So that's why we're going to go ahead and the second thing be add in the stuff. So you see I've added in different numbers and the numbers are increasing. And this is the number of milliseconds that have been running since I told it to actually start going. Simple enough. You're probably familiar with that and happy enough with it. After you've got to this point, that's when we're going to ask you to print things on the screen with the screen print command. And then we can start formatting it a little until it looks nice. And then we can actually get into the middle of the meat of the thing and start using buttons. So we start building buttons like this. You need a start button, right? You always have a start button on a stopwatch. And right now it's not activated, but I can activate it and then it'll stop and start and stop and start, right? The other button that you usually have on the stopwatch is your lap button, right? And again, it's something that you have to activate, but once you activate it, what's going to happen is when you press the lap button, the display will stop, even though it keeps on adding more and more and more into the stopwatch. So if I press the lap button again, you'll see a big jump in that number because the stopwatch has still been going through very quickly, but you've pressed the lap button, which pauses the display so that you can actually read it. If somebody's run by you and you're yelling out, how long it took them to go a lap, right? So that's what's going on there. Now, one thing that happens with most stopwatches is that when you stop this guy and then you press the lap button, it's supposed to clear. Well, that doesn't happen right now, obviously, so we need to activate that. That's going to be the next to last thing that you really have to get done for this, right? And then you'll be able to clear it whenever it whenever it's stopped. So you'll have to reset the entire thing, reset the state, and so forth. So you can start it, you can lap, you can stop while it's in that region, and then press the lap button again and make it go again, and all those other fun things. And then what you'd probably want to do is you'd probably want to actually format the time. Now, formatting the time is a bunch of string manipulation, so I have a format time class in the game class. So you just send the number in milliseconds to the game class format time function, and it'll format it for you. This is one of these things that has taken up a little bit too much time. Formatting strings is not the point of the class. We're interested in the physics. Yes, it's nice to have a cool looking display like this, but still, that we're interested in the physics. So this is looking pretty good. You know, there's absolutely nothing that you really need to get done past this point. Although, you know, this is not the ideal thing. Since you've got a computer, you know, unlike a physical stopwatch, since you have a computer, it's probably nice to make these buttons change their labels when you do things. So let's see what happens after I change the labels. So if I press the stop button, start clear, start. Now it says stop. If I press this one, it'll stop and clear and start. Then I've got the lap, and now the lap will tell me to show it if I do that, and so forth and so on. So those are the things that are going on. So this is the sort of thing that you should do when you're making your state diagram. So I want you to make a state diagram for homework for a stopwatch, right? That means that you need to pay attention to all of this. So again, what happens when you press clear when this thing isn't running? Nothing happens. So you have to keep track of that. So that's your lap button does nothing. But your start button will put this into this mode where it's incrementing, right? So everything's good here, so this thing's incrementing. The lap button will pause the display, but it will still be incrementing. The show button will unpause the display. Stop will always stop the output, and start will turn it back on. If you're in the show and you stop, you're still stopping everything, right? And if you press start again, it's starting up again. So let me see. So let's show this. All right. So let me get to 30. All right. Then I stop it, and then I can't show it again. So I start and I show, lap, show, stop, clear. Okay, those are all the things that you have to do. You have to figure out how to turn that into a state diagram for me, so you can have some idea about what's actually going on in the program while you're trying to program it. It's going to be very important to have some idea about all of these things while you're actually programming. All right, so there you are. That's what you need to do in your exercise 6. You can look forward to doing that in the next couple of days. So you have fun, and I'll see you in class. All right.